Awesome. Thanks, Ian. Oprah?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Oprah Revish. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm running for City Council Ward 2.
Claretta?
Hi, Claretta Duckett Freeman, she, her, they, them. I'm running for City Council at large.
Great. Elvin?
Elvin Caldwell, he, him, and I'm running for 4th Ward City Council.
Great. Linda? Oh, Linda might be having trouble with audio. Brian?
Hi, good afternoon. Brian T. Jackson. Him, his, and for City Council. Afternoon again.
All right, we might be having a little trouble with your audio, Councilmember Jackson. And then Farhan?
Farhan Shikumar, he, him, running for Lansing Mayor.
Great, thanks everyone. All right, so we're gonna start out with one question that was submitted and beforehand. So this is in light of continued it being in the news more, the apartheid state happening within Israel and Palestine. So the question is, are you willing to sponsor or sign an ordinance that would ban any Lansing Police Department training exchanges, workshops, etc., with Israeli organizations? And I'm going to put that in the chat as well. And we will have each candidate go in the same order that we just did introductions. And each candidate gets 2 minutes, and Ian is timing up there in the corner. So start with you, Grant.
Okay. Yeah, I am willing to support that. There's no reason for a local organization to have anything to do with internationally with training. It's similar to how New York Police Department has offices in other countries. There's no reason for that at all. So 100% willing to sponsor anything to make sure that does not happen within our community.
Oprah?
I would also sign something like this. I think that it's important to not be ahistorical when it comes down to international struggles and present struggles and oppression and genocide. So I think it's really important to make sure that we are leading by example, being a capital city and everything. It doesn't make sense to go with things and to not be forthcoming and at the forefront of change, and holding folks accountable to the terrible things that they have done and are doing to real life folks. So I would sign something like this.
Claretta?
Yeah, I would definitely sign something like that because, I don't think our police are trained to do anything well except to murder people. So why would I want to share that with someone else? That's horrible.
Elvin?
I would lend my name and sign something. I think it's a testament to the demilitarization of police, whether it's abroad or our participation in that here domestically. So I would be willing to lay my name, my voice, and my vote from the council for such a sentiment.
Linda? See whether we can hear you now. Oh, you are muted now. Try one more time, Linda. All right.
You may be able to call in. There's an option to call in via phone, and that may resolve that issue. So we can skip ahead, right?
Yeah, and if you want to put your answer in the chat, Linda, as well. That could be another way for everyone to see your response. Brian.
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I do not like what's going on in Israel, and I definitely support the Palestinian people's struggle for independence and basically nationhood and land rights. But would I sponsor it, like bring it myself to Lansing as a ordinance that says that we shouldn't train with police forces from other countries? I don't know if I bring it. Someone needs to mute, I think. I don't know if I bring it. I would support it if it came, but just for the practicality of that, I don't think Lansing Police Department shares any resources or training with Israel or any other countries. Just because that doesn't happen, I probably wouldn't bring it myself. But if it came, I would support it because I definitely support the struggle of the Palestinian people.
Farhan?
Yes, I will support it. I will promote it. And, as a Muslim man, it's very sad. It's very disgraceful what's happening in Gaza and how the bombs that we made here in this country and the money that we as taxpayers pay to Israel each year is being used to kill innocent women and children in Gaza. Like we should be ashamed of ourselves. Each year we give Israel billions of dollars and they just use it to buy weapons and more weapons and more weapons. And I will support it. I will promote it. I've attended many protests out at the Capitol. Many of those protests was hosted by the Islamic Center in East Lansing, which I'm a part of. And so, yeah, I would like to see many of us in this community, in this country, joining each other to condemn what's happening in Israel. And to go even further, I'm going to make sure that we're not working with ICE. We're not harassing the other people that are coming to our country, the people who are seeking asylums. That's not our job as a city, and our police department should not be working with the federal government to arrest people in our city. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to go back to Linda, which I believe you might be on the phone. So I'm going to see if I can unmute you. Or if you can unmute yourself and answer this question.
She answered in chat.
Oh, she answered in the chat. Perfect. Okay, we'll do that moving forward then. Everyone make sure that you're checking the chat. So we are going to move on to members asking questions in real time. So members, if you have questions, put them in the chat. I will be scanning the chat and looking for, sort of diverse variety of questions to ask. You can ask questions to everyone, or you can ask of specific candidates. So the first we're going to ask is actually a follow-up on that first question, which is, would you sponsor or support a divestment resolution for the city government to divest from companies that profit off the Israeli occupation, including pension funds? So let's go back to Grant.
Again, yes, I would support something similar to this. Israel is committing mass genocide in Palestine, and it wasn't our place to even create the country of Israel like we did after World War II. So the city should not be investing in / placing finances anywhere near Israel at this point in time.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely support divesting any money that we're sending to Israel at all. I think it's really important that folks will say that when you put energy into things that you want to see grow, that you want to, you put energy into things you care about. And this is something I care about. And when we put money and energy and resources into something, it means that that's like a value to us. And I want to show that I would sign something to show that this is not a value for myself and for other folks that think like me and want to make sure that we are living our values. And I should hope that we don't value mass genocide and displacing people and harming people. So yeah, so I would definitely support something like this, work with folks to write something up if it hasn't already been started in the city council and the local level, and make sure that it gets pushed through at every level possible.
Claretta?
Yes, I would definitely support divesting from companies that are profiting, but I do think people might be surprised at just how many different companies are profiting from that. Because I think in the past, that's it's been considered a norm to support Israel in the way that the United States has been doing it. So I don't even know if our country as a whole would actually recognize that as a bad thing. So it might be a lot of companies. So that's just to think about.
Thanks. Elvin? Oh, you're muted, Elvin.
I definitely support the sentiment. The policy would need a lot more investigation. When it comes to Lumen, retiree benefits, legacy costs, I think it's very important that we center the discussion around those who will be directly affected by there. So I would leave an opportunity to speak with labor leaders, union leaders to see what companies and where can we replace those relationships with a more socially just entity to keep the funds coming. But I do think it's important that we maintain and keep our promises that we've made to people who've given their lives, their best years, and have worked for the city. So I do think that they should be a part of the conversation, being that they would be the most directly affected.
Brian?
Thank you. So this might not be as popular of an answer as everyone's, but so when I think of Lansing and our job on city council and the stuff that we do that generally has a local reach, I try to put my efforts kind of towards that. So again, I don't agree with our country's stance, how we generally stand in that region and what's happening to the Palestinian people. But would I bring an ordinance or a change or a resolution? I don't know that I would, just because I'm trying to be more focused on how can I help the people that need it in Lansing. And I don't know that, that just to use our time and resources for the political capital just to bring up and make an ordinance or a pension change, knowing that, again, that it probably won't be supported by the masses that it would take to actually pass it. I might not bring it, but would I support it if it came? Yes. And then we would then have to explore even beyond that, like our divestment in large oil companies and other things that we disagree with. So it does open up a larger conversation, and I would support something that came. But again, I don't know that I bring it just because of the practicality of the local aspect of what we do.
Farhan?
As mayor, I will do what's right and not what's popular. And it's important that we hold even our allies accountable. And Israel is an ally of this country. However, that doesn't give them the badge or the right to just go to and just kill people, innocent people. So me personally, I don't care about profits. I'm always going to put people first. And if that means talking to these businesses and finding out ways we can stop sponsoring Israel that's out there killing people, bombing people, even though we give them billions of dollars, even though we help with their with their systems. They have the Iron Dome, so every single missiles that Hamas sent to Israel was being intercepted, and you don't respond by taking our F-115s and F-118s and just bombing people and just killing people. You know, the people in Gaza are literally just throwing rocks at the Israeli police, and they're responding by just bombing houses, and that's not acceptable. So I will always put people before profit, and I will sit down with these businesses, and we will divest if they don't stand up to Israel and speak and do what's right.
And Linda. Try one more time. You are on mute. There we go.
Okay, I apologize. I was getting back on the Zoom meeting again. So do you mind terribly repeating the question?
Yes. Would you sponsor and support something to divest the city of Lansing money, including pension funds, from companies that profit from the Israeli occupation?
Well, with the pension funds, yes, I don't think that we should be in any funds that are going to benefit the Israeli occupation. And I also think that we can put our money into socially responsible funds. I know they're starting to become more lucrative now. I think it's a matter of working with, for instance, police and fire. We're not even offering pensions for new hires for the rest of the city employees. But I think it takes educating those police and fire boards because typically there are big companies running the funds. And so I think we need to get the buy-in first of the police and fire board, which would include some education.
Thank you. So I do see questions about pensions and about banning weapons of war. Both of those we did ask in the candidate questionnaire. So I'm going to prioritize questions that were not asked in the questionnaire already. So I'm going to move on to how would you respond to Vice President Harris's statement to Latin American immigrants saying, "Don't come"? How would you use your position to support the immigrant community in Lansing? Back to Grant.
So for the last 10 years of my time in Lansing, I worked for Peckham Incorporated, which sees a lot of refugees come into Lansing and supports them. So I'm a strong proponent of ways to create citizenship for people and to work with our community leaders or community business partners in assisting immigrants and refugees to come to Lansing and be successful and find a new life that they didn't have in their previous home countries. So I think Vice President Harris saying that is wrong, but there needs to be a proper way of getting citizenship / other statuses instead of just showing up at a border.
Oprah?
When Vice President Harris said that, I just remember feeling like, wait, what? Like our whole American thing is, give us your tired, give us your, screaming masses and all that. And so it's really like how is that the thing? But then really, you come out with this statement. Excuse me. So I was really put off by that and disappointed. Because I would have liked to see some real change that makes sense for how we're handling folks who are fleeing for their lives. And I think within my position, I would make sure that we are working with the Refugee Development Center and listening to folks who are doing the work and who need the work to be done. I'm not a person that thinks that I have all the answers or that I'm a single-handedly change everything about Lansing. So it is going to take coalition building and listening to people and working alongside folks who are on the ground, like doing this work. And so I'm prepared to do that. I think I've said it before, but I want to make sure that when I go to a city council meeting, I'm not saying my ideas are, or I read a book and I think we should do this thing, but that I'm really speaking intelligently about what Lansing citizens really need. So I intend to meet with folks regularly to talk through what they are experiencing, because I only live my life. I don't know the life of other folks. So how are you experiencing Lansing, the resources and lack thereof of resources, and how can I serve you with this position on city council?
Loretta?
I echo a lot of what Oprah said. Considering that a lot of those folks, their ancestors were indigenous to this land, that was a very hypocritical thing to say. That don't even make any sense. This land is occupied by colonizers, including a lot of our ancestors. For me specifically, the slave owners, you know, colonizers. So I just don't, to me, that just doesn't even make any sense. So I would support all the groups and organizations that are helping to provide any food, shelter, jobs, any type of resources. I think the city should work with those organizations and make sure people know, hey, Lansing is the place to be. You are welcome here. And to back that up, I would say even, I don't know, maybe come up with certificates or things like that to recognize businesses that also do that, that don't have to, that aren't nonprofits, that's not what they do. Like, show that we want you guys to do that. We want everybody to embrace it, not just those folks who have a passion for it.
Elvin?
I think the vice president's comments were sad and unfortunate. Principles matter. Principles matter the most to me. I think immigrants should be respected when they come to this country, whether they came on a raft or if they came on the Mayflower, or if they came across the border. I think immigrants deserve respect when they come to this country. However, we have a large population of immigrants here in the United States and here in Lansing, and we have services. I know as a legislative consultant advocating for direct care workers, I know 50% of them are mostly immigrants who are also women. And then also working at the Northwest Initiative, where we do food drives and distribution. We try to connect with those communities. So I think if we can make Lansing a welcoming place, what we can do locally to make sure that the folks that we have here in Lansing, who are of different persuasions and different backgrounds, as long as they feel welcome here, we can reach the national conversation by showing, like we did in 2017, that Lansing was a welcoming sanctuary city, and we can still continue to be on the vanguard of being present in the issues and being progressive when it comes to the policy and ideas coming out. But I think her sentiments were wrong, and I will work to draft and support policies that make Lansing a dignifiable place to work and live, just like we mentioned in our literature. So thank you.
Thanks. Brian?
Thank you. So to be 100% honest, what I would do in response to the vice president's comments is that I wouldn't respond to them. I would, because for me to say to support or be against what she said to tell people not to come would not further the goal that we all have to make sure that the people who are here and the people who do come to Lansing, they live in a respectful place. They don't have to worry about discrimination. They know that the courts, the police department, the city government, and everybody in and around Lansing will accept them, welcome them, and help them to establish themselves and to be safe and free from violence and discrimination and due process violations. So in my position, what I would do is I would continue to monitor the scene of Lansing as far as our courts, policy. We have a policy where we don't call ICE. The police aren't supposed to ask people whether their status or not. So we have those in place, and I'll make sure they stay in place and make sure that everything that we do and can decide on keeps in mind not to infringe on people's rights, whether they have documentation or not. So although I don't agree with what the vice president said, because people come from these places in Central America and beyond because they're fleeing from indespicable, deplorable, violent conditions, and they're worried about their family and friends and their whole lives. So that's why people come. They don't come because they just want to be in the United States and have to deal with all of our crap. They come for their safety and their well-being. So with that in mind, I'll make sure that Lansing continues to be a welcoming place, and I'll continue to monitor and all the policies that has to do with their livelihood and make sure that they're continue to be fair and not discriminatory.
Farhan.
You know, I'm gonna be very honest. I've been very disappointed with the Biden administration, especially to his response to Israel and what was happening in Gaza. You know, the United States was one of the last countries to demand a ceasefire, and that was very heartbreaking. As far as what Vice President Harris said, was very disappointing. You know, as an immigrant myself, no one wants to leave their country. No one wants to leave their family and everything that they have worked so hard just to come to another country for fun. Nobody does that. You know, when I came here, when my family and I came here, we were fleeing violence. We were fleeing hunger, poverty. And for Kamala Harris to just say, you know what, don't come. First of all, seeking asylum is legal. It's not illegal. Seeking asylum is legal, and people can seek asylum in this country. And, you know, I would suggest, like, Ms. Harris, go spend a month in Guatemala, go spend a month in Mexico, go spend a month in Honduras, and see what these people are dealing with before you make such an ignorant comment like that. We should be welcoming immigrants to this country. We are a nation of immigrants. Let's remember that we are a nation of immigrants. And as mayor, I'll make sure that we have partners in this community, including St. Vincent Catholic Charities. You know, St. Vincent Catholic Charities does a lot of great things in this city. They have welcomed my family and I, and they helped us a lot. And I will continue that partnership going forward. And I'll make sure that the police department is not stopping people, pulling people over just to ask for documents. And we will help immigrants. As an immigrant myself, I will do everything that I can to make sure when people get here, they have the resources to succeed and to contribute to our city and to our community.
Linda.
Thanks.
Thank you. I believe that Kamala Harris's answer was a little naive. You know, it's said that we always have a choice, but if you are fleeing poverty, hunger, even loss of your own life, then there really isn't a choice, and people do try and cross our borders. The thing is, before Trump, I remember in my hometown of Rutland, Vermont, 100 people, refugees, were scheduled to just move into our community. And I think that if a city that small can absorb 100 people, then there's cities all over the country that can absorb refugees. And Lansing has always had great organizations, nonprofits, to help refugees. And as a substitute teacher, I taught refugee students in the primary grades for several months. And so I just think we need to be open, and we need to look at what we can do. There's certainly a lot of work to be done throughout America. And number one, we need to raise the wages so that we can create a higher tax base and be able to do some of the things that we really need to do. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. So we're over halfway through right now. We're not going to have time for all of our questions. And I just want to remind people, you know, this is very overwhelming, lots of candidates. Please take notes, for our discussion going forward. So I'm going to move us on to what policies would you promote to support renters in Lansing and curb the power of slumlords? Grant.
I believe there needs to be a little bit more city oversight in the regards to slumlords. They definitely need to make sure that the housing is adequate for all and fair in cost. There are portions of the city that are owned by investment groups that just re-rent it out day after day or month after month, whatever they do with it, and they never keep that property upgraded or updated to make it even livable almost. It's unfortunate how some of these properties just go into disrepair and become a blight, and probably are not the most healthy place in the world for someone to be living in. So the city council definitely needs to work on policies requiring certain updates to property over a certain amount of time. So, or after certain amount of renters, maybe after 5 renters, maybe they have to update and do certain things to this property, and it would have to be inspected by the city.
Oprah.
I agree. I think the city needs to have more of a hand in making sure that things are up to code. So building up that line in the government, making sure that there are enough workers to actually get around to all the properties that are in Lansing, making sure that after a certain period of time, we are going in and making sure that things aren't moldy, that when people are buying these homes and these apartment complexes and they're flipping them very quickly to make a profit, that they're not flipping them and then not having any regard for the folks that are going to live there. I've had multiple friends at this point who have gone into homes that, and they said that the basement was finished, but really they just painted and kind of put up some drywall, but there's no, water moving from the sump pump. So then there's mold after a few months and that sort of thing. And that's really incredibly dangerous. And that's happening to our low income folks, to Black and brown folks, people who are like, wow, I'm finally getting into a house. And then that kind of thing happens to them. So there definitely needs to be more oversight. And I would push for something like that because there are a lot of rental properties out here. I would also push for something that makes it so, we're not paying rent, $1,200 in rent every month for a property that has been paid off for 25 years, that actually shouldn't be $1,200 a month. It should actually be like $600 a month. But that person really wants to get, a new summer home or something like that. I really don't think that like renters should be funding, extravagant lifestyles of people who own these homes. But we need to put something in place for that. Definitely. Thank you for the question.
Greta.
I would say, for one, we need to enforce the laws that are already there. They're not enforcing. There are a lot of fines they could be giving them for these deficiencies. They don't do that. As somebody who owns a home, a lot of people who own homes, we recognize that there are times where the people who are the landlords are not getting fined for things that they should be getting fined for, but we get fined for every little thing. And I definitely don't think that's fair. I would look to groups like the Lansing Tenants Union to hear directly from the people, like what do they think would be helpful. I also think that when we notice that there are certain groups or companies that are repeatedly making the same mistakes, when you have council meetings and it comes up that this company wants to get a permit to change this property, or they want to do this or that type of stuff should be noted and it should be brought up. And we were like, well, we're not going to approve them for this because every time they get some land, this is what they do with it. So I think the city council needs to be paying attention to that. Also, I do think we need to start making sure that there's a certain amount of affordable housing that's set aside for low income. 25% of Lansing lives below the poverty line. So I think 25% of all the rental properties should have low rent, and it should be set aside for people who don't make a lot of money.
Elvin.
Thank you. A great question. This past weekend, I attended an open house for the Capital Area Housing Partnership. I serve on the board of directors. It was 2 brand new, all the way new builds on High Street that the Capital Area has built and are selling to low income, first time home buyers at the sale price, no highest bid. And I think organizations like CAP need to continue to be supported through CDBG dollars that come through the city of Lansing, but also the CAP, they've been enforcing or executing the CERA Act, which is covering rent payments for families here in Lansing every week for the Tri-County area. They're paying about $400,000 in rental assistance or mortgage assistance payments, and those payments are helping renters. And then I know some good landlords. I know we have a plethora of bad landlords, but I know some great property owners in the Fourth Ward who are benefiting from the CRAC and that partnership with in the execution from Capital Area Housing Partnership. And they're paying out rental assistance to landlords and paying it on behalf of tenants too. As a realtor, I know what it means for home buyers and people who own their cribs to get incentives. So I would be advocating for grants and other monies to come in to help home buyers and homeowners. Then I'll use my vote at pilots. I would protect that vote. I think a lot of times the council is unaware or ignorant to the level of quality when they pass certain pilots. I would be a hands-on type, as we've done with CAP. I think we have a strong record for providing affordable housing, lifting the quality of the inventory here in Lansing. And I would continue to support organizations like that are helping the local economy through giving people a dignified place to live here in Lansing. And then I would like to see some enforcement of some of the rental codes that we have here currently too. But I think those are all things that can be done and the things that can continue to be done. And organizations like CAP is filling that void already, and we need to support them and support others who are currently, working to see that we have affordable options, respectable and dignifiable options for people to live in here in Lansing.
Thanks. Brian.
Thank you. So I struggle with this question sometimes because of the implications that it could have on people's lives one way or the other. So I don't want anybody to have to live in conditions that are subpar or in violation of any code because it's dangerous and for a lot of other reasons. But if they don't live in those places, sometimes I wonder where will people live? And I know we have a homeless population in Lansing and a lot of places. So so it's like the balance is kind of hard for me sometimes. But what I do think we can do as a city and council is to force the codes we have, because we can't live in buildings that have no air conditioning in the summer, or no heat in the winter, or roof that's proper, or electric that is a hazard. It's against the law now. It's against our code now. So I know we do have enforcement problems. I know that we do have backup, and we do have people calling all the time about certain properties and locations. And it doesn't always make it all the way to the end as far as someone getting out there enforcing it and writing people up and making sure that it's corrected and putting the red tag on. It's just when a red tag goes on and people can't live there, then those people have to leave, and it's hard because I don't want to have to see anybody leave their house. But at the same time, I don't want to see people have to live in hazardous conditions. So if we can enforce what we have, then that in itself should mean that everybody lives in a safe place. So we would have to up our enforcement, which is also a challenge because it seems like it's so hard to get one position for anything. I know that we enforce our code position a few times in the last 4 years. So to do that more, and ultimately, if any policy that comes across that supports affordable housing, support tenants' rights, I would still, since we're just having a conversation, those are the things I think of as well. Thank you.
Okay. Farhan.
I'm all about action, and I feel like now it's time for action rather than just talking. The first thing that I'm willing to do is make sure that we are enforcing our code, and I'm also willing to go further and work with City Council to raise property tax on bad landlords who are not interested in making sure that their buildings are up to date. For example, I just saw a comment in here that stated that their landlord owns about 500 units. Now, if you're a landlord and you own 500 units, and let's say 10 of them, you don't want to fix 10 of them, you still have a lot more that you don't care about losing those 10 more. However, those 10 units are just sitting there right now, and we're not making any profit as a city, or if we are, it's not much. So I want to make sure that we're putting a lot of pressure on these landlords to get their buildings up to date. And if they're not willing to do that, then we got to raise the property tax on them to make sure that they're paying, that they're making up the difference. Because as Brian stated, like, people shouldn't have to pick whether they should live in these bad conditions or be homeless. Like, these people are paying for that house. They're not living there for free. It's not a shelter, it's a house. And that landlord expects a monthly payment from those folks. So it's important that the tenants are getting their units up to date. And as a city, we have failed. You know, there are a lot of apartments and houses in this city that have mice and cockroaches, and it's just full of filth. And these people are paying a lot of money. They're paying $800, $900, almost $1,000 for what? For what? Like, I'd rather live at a home inside a shelter instead of paying that. So I will make sure that we are enforcing our codes. We are making sure that whenever a house is unsafe for the tenants, that we have resources and organizations that are helping, that are going to help them move to another housing. And we got to hold these.
Okay, I'm gonna have to cut you off right now. Sorry, 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, Linda.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, we certainly should work within the parameters of what we could do as council members. But I also think we need to look a little longer term. Local groups have come up with ideas like a tenants' rights organization. A tenants' bill of rights. And we, as was noted earlier, we do have a tenants' rights organization. I mean, for instance, people should not have to suffer an eviction without just cause. Someone that's being stalked should have the right to be able to be removed from the lease and to find other housing. I believe we need a People's Housing Commission, which was not my idea. It's another group in the city that can take credit for that. And they could do a needs assessment in the city of what we do need for housing. I've been a longtime advocate for housing. In '89, I helped found, it was called Tampa Housing Now, and there were housing nows all over the country. And nationwide, we brought 250,000 people to DC to raise awareness about homelessness and affordable housing. And all these years later, we're still struggling, and I don't know that we've really made a lot of inroads. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to do my commercial to the activists out there. I'm an activist first. I'm a politician activist. We need people to get on city boards. There's some 40 plus boards and authorities and so on, because we need to get more activists like ourselves. Everybody that I see on this Zoom today is an activist, and we need more of us to get on city council so that we can get these goals in place that are idealistic but should be realistic. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, running low on time. We're going to do 2 more questions and real quick. So the first is for Oprah, Claretta, and Farhan. How will you ensure that the city is bargaining fairly with city employees, and how would you support strong labor contracts for public employees in Lansing? Starting with Oprah.
Whew, y'all are coming hard with these questions. I appreciate it. And I also, my values are human-centered, community-centered. If we put the most marginalized folks at the center of all the work that we do, everyone benefits. The systems become clearer to navigate. Our resources go to where they actually are needed. Linda, could you mute yourself? I'm getting like a little background noise. Thank you. And I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me, like somebody's in my house. So resources go to where they need to go. People get served. And so I would protect folks, or push to protect folks within my position, by making sure that, the city isn't hiring lawyers. Someone said in the chat, hiring lawyers that bust up union organizing, protecting those folks from retaliation in their workplace, so that, you know, their bosses on that level aren't trying to write them up every other day, to get them fired, to get them moved through the system so that they can't organize. And also I would support organizing. Someone else in the chat asked if we were a part of unions. And I've been a part of unions for, I work at Michigan State, so I'm unionized there, but I worked at my previous institution in Massachusetts. I was also a part of a union, and an active member, went to vote and everything like that, and wrote up proposals in that position. And so, so unions are very near and dear to my heart. I believe that folks should be able to unionize so that they can advocate for themselves, especially when we are working in systems of oppression, and all the things that come with that. There are folks that are always going to be at the top trying to get more and more, and they don't care who they step on, and who they have to hurt in order to get that more. So I'm willing to put my name on anything that will help us out, that will help unions out.
All right, Floretta.
Could you repeat that question? Because I didn't get the second half of it.
Yes. Oh, I have to scroll up. Could someone else unmute and ask it? Where are we?
Within the power granted to City Council Mayor, how will you ensure that the city is bargaining fairly with city employees? How would you support strong labor contracts for public employees in Lansing?
Okay, so one, for me, there have been very few times that I have been a member of a union, and that is because they make it very hard for people to start unions. I support unions, but the thing is, you got to recognize that if those unions are still operating under white supremacy, it doesn't help. That is why you have firefighters who are suing the city of Lansing right now. They have a union, but if you have a union leader who supports white supremacy, it does not help the most marginalized folk. So although I totally support unions, we need to start making sure that union leaders are people who know. And so in order for them to know how it is to be marginalized, they probably need to be marginalized. I think the time is over for white men to be the head of unions repeatedly. We've had many years of that. Even when unions first began, they kept out Black folks. So that's something I think people need to recognize, because I think we still have remnants of that. So the way that I would do is to support that is investigate these departments. So even when you do have unions, you need to investigate, why aren't these unions able to protect these people? What is it that they need to do better? Do we need to remove people, or do we need to change policy? So we just need to do some digging and figure out what's going on there. But I can guarantee a lot of it is because things aren't people-centered, it's money-centered. And even when it comes to the city of Lansing, the reason why we don't bargain fairly with the workers is because we're concerned about money, and we rather steal their money. And that's kind of sucks.
Thanks. Farhan.
Yes, I support unions, and I think it's disgraceful what's been happening in our city. We all saw what happened when Andy Shore tried to backdoor our retirees and try to take away their benefits in the middle of a global pandemic. He did not have any discussions with union reps. He did not have any discussions with our city retirees. He did not have any discussions with city council of all people, of all groups. He did not have a discussion with city council. So I will make sure that, as I've stated before, we're going to put people first instead of profit. And we're going to honor any contracts that we sign as a city, and not try to backdoor people and try to strip away their hard work and hard earnings that they have. We have police officers and firefighters in the city that have put in years, decades of service. And some of them, I had the chance of hearing their concerns when they called city council, and they missed birthdays, anniversaries, because they were busy serving the city. And now they're begging Andy Shore to keep their health care. It's a disgrace, and it won't happen under my watch. I will work with unions. I will make sure that we're not firing people simply because they criticize us. And we're going to honor every single contract that we sign as a city.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask one more question because it's very important. And this is for everyone. And Ian, could you change the timer to 1 minute for everyone for this one? So are you a socialist? Would you become a member of DSA and commit to coming to monthly meetings to stay accountable? Starting with Grant.
I am not a socialist. I consider myself more of a moderate. I believe that there needs to be someone directly in the middle as much as possible in regards to, I think of whatever you want to do with your life, it's up to you what you want to do with it. If you want to marry someone, you marry someone. If you want to do anything you want to do, it's your right to do that. I also believe that the government needs to use the finances appropriately, use my money that you're taxing appropriately. I would though still come to monthly DSA meetings because it's, as a council person, it is required. You should be listening to the community to figure out what their needs are and how you can better assist everyone as much as possible.
Oprah.
I don't believe that any political system is without flaws. Because we are stuck in a two-party system at this point in our lives, I'm a registered Democrat, but within my campaign and within my life, my activist life, and my organizing life, I am community-centered. So I believe in the principles of socialism, of DSA specifically, and I would definitely come to your meetings. I've been thinking about just doing it anyway, especially since you and I met, Dinah. And so I'm a supporter. I would come to your monthly meetings to learn what y'all are working on. But I don't know, I'm not super into labels. I call myself a queer person. That's the only label that I have chosen in my life that works best. But I really am about community and about making sure that people have what they need, not just to be surviving, like scraping by, but for folks to actually be able to thrive and live the life that they want to live.
Thanks. Claretta.
Yeah, when I looked up the DSA, my views are definitely socialist. Would I become a member? It would depend, because oftentimes when I am in groups where it is dominated by white folks, I am harmed. So I would have to feel the vibe and see if it would be a safe place. Could I commit to coming to monthly meetings? I would say I would like to, but also I'm a firefighter, so my life don't run like that where I can just go to things monthly all the time. But that would definitely be something I would be interested in doing.
Thanks. Elvin.
I'm a principalist. We identify with a lot of the same things. I think when I talk about local jobs, small business, working families, advocating for economic developments to help them thrive and flourish, I think those are socialist principles of protecting and enhancing Lansing neighborhoods through being committed to being prepared for meters and the wise use of tax dollars. Those are socialist principles. Dignity is a top priority for everyone. When I speak about that, that's a socialist principle. And teamwork, providing public-private partnerships that'll help the city and the region grow, thrive, and flourish. I think those are all democratic and socialist principles that I want to work and do for you at City Hall. I want to be committed, and I want to represent not only the socialists in the ward, but the conservatives in the ward, the liberals in the ward, every identity that makes Lansing beautiful. I want to be able to receive phone calls, respond, and be the service person for them. So I'm asking for votes in November. Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you. So I consider myself a progressive Democrat because the two-party system, I am registered with the Michigan Democratic Party for a few reasons, but I'm progressive. And I'll tell you that I have not heard anything that I disagree with from, for example, Bernie Sanders. I did vote for him twice, 2 years or 2 elections. But besides just voting for somebody, I mean, I consider myself progressive. And if that goes into socialist or not, I'm still trying to kind of find where I fit on that side on the left. So I appreciate that question. I would definitely come to meetings. I'm not sure about all of them, but whichever ones you want me to come to, I'd come to. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate this forum. And I would love to have your endorsement. Thank you.
Farhan.
You know, just like many other things, the word socialist, was politically hijacked, just like BLM, just like defund the police. I am all for $15 hourly minimum wage. I'm all for free education. I'm all for free healthcare for everyone. And if that makes me a socialist, then damn it, sign me up, because those are things that I believe in. And if I do have time and I don't have anything planned, I would love to attend your monthly meetings. I would love to attend each meeting and talk to you guys and reach out to our community. I would love to get your endorsement. I would love to get your support going forward. And no matter what happens in this election, this is not going to be the last time that you guys and I talk. And I'll always be a voice for the voiceless. I'll always defend the defenseless. And I look forward to working with you guys going forward. Thank you.
And Linda.
Thank you. I would say that, excuse me, I would say that my views are socialist. Right now on the ballot, we don't have the option of running as a party. Well, actually, and this is even nonpartisan, but typically we run as a Democrat or a Republican to get any sort of base and votes. Like Brian, I'm definitely a progressive. I don't know if you know Mark Grebner, longtime county commissioner, but I've been accused of being left of Mark. I guess I definitely probably would be along the lines of Bernie. I think he calls himself, a socialist Democrat, I believe. And I'm running out of time. And I want to really thank you for this opportunity today, this forum. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our Q&A section. We went a little over, but thank you, all of you, for making it today, for filling out the candidate survey, and we will get to you soon. The polls are going to be open until Tuesday at midnight, and then we will let you know. So thank you so much, and we're going to ask you all to leave and continue with our meeting. So thank you.